Welcome back, everyone. Tactical Tequila podcast, solo this edition. In the studio with me, Jay Collins, former CID, former agency guy, former DHS, private contractor.
Yeah,
I mean, you've done it all.
Try to do a little bit of everything.
So going to your CID days.
Sure. I was first an MP, we were, and I got orders to shape Belgium, which was nice from Fort Riley, being with the 1st Infantry Division.
For sure.
So it was kind of nice. It was a joint military police, security police unit, but we worked for CID.
Okay.
So working for the agents, they were like, if you're interested, put in a packet. So, CW4 Chris Winch was the agent in charge at the time, and he helped me kind of get things together. And that's where it started to put in my packet. And you couldn't stay in protection at the time. So I had to go to investigations, which, cut your teeth. So I got through the academy and went to Fort Gordon, Georgia.
Okay.
I don't know what it's called now, but back in our day, it was Fort Gordon.
I know when I went through, they actually allowed you to stay protection because I was in Brussels, Belgium when I went CID.
Okay.
And they asked me if I wanted to stay protection or go into investigations. And I said, I want to stay protection.
I've done the same.
and sure enough, I was on orders to PSD and
nice.
Spent 4 years there.
That's good times.
So going to those days, and I just found out today recently that you and I both know someone who just passed away, Bill Randall.
Yep.
He was a living legend in the PSD world for the government, for DOD, U.S. Army CID. So, Bill, we're going to cheers this one to you.
Absolutely. Good tequila.
Now, so how long were you in CID?
I was in CID as an agent, active duty from 1994 through 1997. Active duty.
Okay. And then, so after your active duty stint, then?
Finished up before I got out. I ran the drug unit there and had been working joint cases with DEA.
Okay.
Pat Clayton was our resident agent in Augusta. So I left active duty in November, walked straight on to the DEA task force, but I was assigned to the state counter drug task force.
Okay.
Did that for a year, went and switched over to the Air National Guard, wanted to mix it up.
Okay.
And that was kind of cool. They were like, hey, you're a staff sergeant in the Army. We'll make you a staff sergeant in the Air Force. Didn't realize till first drill. I'm like, wait, I'm an E5. And they're like, yep, that's a staff sergeant in the Air Force. So that was I enjoyed my time there with the Air Force so much. It was pre 9/11 that it was fun. It was good, but they had a detail roll in. We're on the flight line, and one of the agents goes, what are you doing? Like, not only will we get you your 6, you can pick up your 7. All you got to do is come back. So they talked me into it. So I went back in as a reservist.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then how long were you there as a reservist?
I was in the Jacksonville, Florida, the 307th Detachment, and got there in 99. And it wasn't long, 2000 rolled around, and they had a rotation for Bosnia. So because I ran the drug unit in Fort Gordon, I got the opportunity to run the drug unit out of Tuzla.
Okay.
And that was fun. And I got to work with some of the SOCOM units and some of the specialty folks over there that I thought was really cool, coming from our side of the house in CID. And got back, 9/11 hit. I was a police officer at the time back in Georgia. 9/11 hit, and that's when, of course, we were talking about doing protection and starting off on all those details. Got done with that, got back, Iraq kicked off. Got activated again for that. So the bosses at the time were going, hey, are you going to be full-time or part-time? It's like every time we turn around, we're getting activated.
Right.
So I made a decision in 2004 when we got back We had like a 30-day window, and I remember I took it. So finished my time in 04. So I did about 7 years active, 7 years in the reserves, kind of part-time, and even with the activation. So I didn't know if you were active and did the reserves thing too.
No, I was active duty my whole 12 years. Yeah.
You broke clean.
Yeah.
I should have done it.
Right.
Everything's for a reason.
I tell anyone when they ask me about the military, it's one of those things you wake up one morning and you're like, I am done.
Yeah, you just know.
And even though like I love protection, it's my wheelhouse, it's what I do. It gets to the military gets to the point where you're like, I'm done with the bullshit. I'm done with everything that you're.
The protection was fun. It's the bullshit that gets old. Yeah, it's all the other stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, with that, I just woke up one morning and I was like, okay,
you knew.
I'm done. So after this contract's up, I'm out.
And I'm sure they were going, don't leave. Why are you getting out? What can we offer you? They get the standard.
They did. And I was just like, no,
it's too late.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, I could definitely make more. When I got out, I was a sergeant first class. So E7,
Debt sergeant, that's
I was a PSO.
Okay, gotcha. I was doing the debt thing on the door.
No, at the time, I was Ash Carter's PSO.
Okay,
and got out. They wanted to ship me to Korea.
Funny how that happens for protection.
To do debt work, and Ash was like, "Nope, he's staying on."
And they can do that.
Yeah.
Well, one of the interesting other things about at that level that we were at, that it's a different world.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So once you got out of the military, how did you get to the agency, and what drew you to the agency?
That was my first time. Got back in 04, decided to cut clean, and I had been back. I was on now in my civilian job as an 1811. I was protecting Secretary Chow with Department of Labor. And we were at a dinner at the vice president's house, several corporate details, several government details, and everybody, you're looking at the pins in the earpiece, trying to figure out who each other is. Started talking to some guys that were with the high net worth family in Austin. Oh, can we say that?
Yeah.
Dell family, And they were like, come on out, try it out, see if it looks good to you. So I took a chance, flew out to Texas, loved it. It was very interesting. And you know how different details are heavy with different groups, be it SEALs, CAG, CID, OSI. And they were heavy with agency guys. But in our age group, they weren't old timers. And is it okay? Names? Yeah, they're great guys.
Unless you're bound by a non-disclosure.
No.
I don't care.
I love singing everybody's praises. So Dan Thompson, and also Mike Trott, and both of them have done wonderful things since. So
I'm pretty sure I know Dan.
Okay,
because he went to work for a California-based company.
That's right, I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was there. It was good. And I had already done a couple of tours overseas, and I had went back in 04 as a detail lead for the CPA OIG.
Okay.
And I think Dan saw that it was good timing. He goes, I think there's something else you probably want to be doing other than, and the domestic stuff in Texas was fine at the time. And it was just like he, in the movie, slid across a number and he said, try this number, give him a call. And it was a fax number. And faxed them on this entity on Friday. I got a phone call, and it was through their cover companies, or the larger contractors are like Blackwater, MVM. Mine was with MVM. And on Monday, I was hired. And this was for the domestic project. So back in the day, they also covered with contractors, the brass in the States. That detail didn't get renewed. So then I just transferred to the overseas contract. But it was from those nice guys from the agency that I got to meet on my, first getting my feet wet on a family detailer in that kind of corporate world, that that was that kind of networking where you still have to prove yourself. You still have to get through everything, but I was always very appreciative of that. And they've done wonderful things since, and I've tried to stay in touch with them, as much as possible. And that was how I got into the agency. That was in 2005.
And how long did you spend in the agency?
2.5 years. And I was a contractor. Most people know that, the term blue badger is direct. And I was one of those dirty knuckle dragging green badgers, But I absolutely loved the 2.5 years. The tours were great. It was everything I wanted it to be.
So having been a contractor, and, I know there's people out there with this type of question. Is the agency, or, the entities around the agency, is it similar to what the movies?
Off of my personal interpretation, hell yes. I loved, when it came down to your bosses, to the blue badgers, when it came down to the contractors you work with, when it came to the safe houses or the flagpoles, guns, gear, training, there was no downside to me. I absolutely loved it. And as a contractor, we had the freedom back then. You could kind of pick and choose your AORs. And if the chief of station took a liking to you, like in a lot of different details and whatnot, you can go back to the same places. So it was enjoyable to go to a few of the assignments a few times and be familiar.
Okay.
But yes, if you're at, if people, I loved it all. But everything comes to, that assignment. At the time, it's like it probably need to go back domestic.
Yeah.
So when it comes to relationships, so
yeah.
I did through gnashing of the teeth. But yes, I left as a contractor and went back to the domestic world.
Okay. And then, so when you came back, what'd you end up doing?
I came back to TII, Tactical Intelligence. Dave Robinson's a great guy that I've worked for, and now he's back full-time in it as a reservist, supporting intel for Navy spec warfare.
Okay.
But at the time, he had a lot of good contracts, and he called me and he goes, "Hey, this is primarily in Miami and the Virgin Islands." And I was like, well, I just did a bunch of tours overseas between Iraq and Afghanistan. That sounds pretty good.
Right.
So off we went, and it was speedboats, and it was everything cool down in the beaches, and it was great down there, and it was a good protection detail. We ended up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I got a call from another great Dell guy, which are from Aaron Arp.
Yep.
And he was like, "Hey, remember our Dell time? I've got there was an opportunity in Hawaii for another high net worth family."
Okay.
And flew out there for that, and got on board, and I was in Hawaii with the family, now doing,
Man, that's got to be a rough detail.
That was a great detail. But, the joke was we always said we kept our clothes folded there on the islands because we were always traveling. But the families, it was great. They got to enjoy the islands, and the family themselves that we were covering really respected family time. So it was one of those things that worked out really well, instead of just being like a necessary evil, which some details are, you have to be there.
Yeah.
But all the families have been enjoyable, and all the people that I've worked with have been great.
That's good. Yeah. So you've never had a difficult protectee?
I would say not the protectee. There are, as usual, people in the outer rings that believe they are the principal. And, we're not going down rabbit holes, but I have found that there's usually one family or friend that keeps it even keeled. You can't have it perfect. But other than that, and then you find, does the principal support you, or do they have to go with the, their family or friend when it comes to certain decisions or certain calls that get made? It can get interesting.
Yeah. Well, in governments, the government side of things, like that's totally different.
Set.
Like,
oh yeah.
Not
much gray.
I had a deputy sec def at one time, and him and his wife hated security, hated it with a passion. They would come out of their house, hop in their car, and
off they'd go.
Jet.
No clue
where they're going, and they didn't care if we kept up or
wasn't their problem.
Wasn't their problem. But because of that position, they're warranted, a security detail.
Correct.
I just, I just that was like my first introduction into, well, technically my second, because the first was Brussels.
Okay.
And then when I went to the Pentagon, that was.
What was your break time between Belgium and getting to DC?
Just long enough to go through CID school.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, which is 4 months.
4 months.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did they extend it?
I think it's 4 or 5 months.
I don't know what they do now, but
it's been a while.
It would be interesting to see how they do things different, or how it is.
Yeah. And so, how did you get into DHS?
Through another contact from Hawaii. Okay. So there was a great guy, Tim Rivero, and him and I's career had followed each other between the military, law enforcement, being cops. He was a firefighter for a little while, and we kind of followed each other through all these incredible tours and different units and assignments. And he came out to Hawaii also. He was on the detail. He rotated back after a year.
Okay.
And mentioned to me that with my age, he goes, hey, there's going to come a time we're doing some hiring. And the way I see the numbers with your age, you've got about one shot if you want to come back. And I explained that to the family and the brass side of the house there. And they were very understanding. And I always appreciate that from them. And I put in my packet. After 9/11, it was a different, I was a SWAT cop in Georgia. I'm standing at a street corner and I meet John Mitri, who's a great guy that was on the detail with labor. And I did one interview on a Friday. And on Monday, I swore in as special deputy U.S. Marshal back then before everybody had their own credentialing. Yeah. And off to work I went. They covered everything. CID Academy, the protection school, easy peasy. Well, fast forward now, I'm in the mix with everybody else on USA Jobs.
Yeah.
And that was humbling. So I got to go through the whole process with the packet, make sure everything was good, whittling down from interviews and going through all the steps. And I was very appreciative for the heads up because of the announcement. And there were several. But I think originally I was going to be assigned at the flagpole in San Francisco, but I don't gamble. So the brass was like, you're going to Vegas. So,
I mean, still not a bad station to land on. No, not at all.
It wasn't bad. And I was the only agent in the state. So that was nice. And I would cover Hawaii, Guam, and Saipan for investigations as needed. So I got to fly out to the island still and get to say hey to the family and keep up with the guys that are still on the team.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it was nice.
Heck yeah. And so working with DHS, can you tell a little bit about what you did for DHS?
Sure. Our division, I think there's 22 hats under Homeland. Ours was under Homeland, but under the Federal Protective Service. So most people know those as the protection of the federal buildings and the employees and certain offsites and other areas. Most people know the Guard Force, the gray shirts they may call them, that are at most. From there, most people know the uniform division, which is, you'll see the white cars with the blue stripes and the uniforms say Homeland Security and all that. And then the smallest division was what I did as a special agent. And we handled, as a uniformed officers at a particular department would handle the day-to-day stuff and misdemeanors. We were the plainclothes agents that handled felonies, just like in the Army CID and all the other three letters. There was those that did their own little piece of the pie. It worked out well because when I got there, it was kind of, okay, you're the one agent. Are you thinking maybe a JTTF tour or at the Fusion Center? And I was, haven't been a cop. Sorry. I was like, hey, I wanted to work with Metro. So to be assigned with the task force there in the Fusion Center was great because then it was like, you're a Fed, but you still get to be around the cops.
Yeah.
And it was all terrorism. I will say that Las Vegas does a great job in law enforcement in the community when it comes to the terrorism and staying on top of things. I was very impressed with the professionalism and I was very thankful to be a part of it. And there was a few special assignments I would get kicked out to, look different, and surveil or keep an eye on things. But having a home base in Sin City was nice. And then, you and I had several great times there in the federal building.
We did. I remember a few times you had the longest beard down to almost your belly and long hair, you looked homeless.
Yes. That was portrayal. Yeah. And that was the longest that was the longest assignment for the Bundy trials.
Yeah, and I mean, and you know, while I was working there,
Mm-hmm.
like I would escort the U.S. attorneys over doing, you know, protection
Yeah.
To ensure that they made it into the courthouse safe,
Mm-hmm.
because that was a crazy trial.
Yes.
Is there anything that you can elaborate on in that?
I think where most people thought we were out for the, you know, I think everybody was against like the family on the government side. We were actually there to make sure nothing was going on to them. You know, we were set up with Metro around the courthouse area, and we wanted to make sure everybody was safe. So it wasn't that, you know, other agencies did their thing, but for us, what we did, where we were just making sure everything was good, nothing bad was happening. And I believe even for what we encountered, there was only one arrest.
Okay.
It was made, which was low key and handled very professionally. But everything, you know, that trial ended and the op was over, and I got a haircut and a shave, and I got to and now it doesn't grow back. So,
should have kept it.
Should have kept it.
Should have kept it.
Yeah, but I looked homeless. We smelled. You know, we didn't bathe. You know, we were there to set up, and and it was
So
the older days.
Is that? Would you say that was probably one of the most memorable cases there, or did you have others?
I would say the most memorable was October 1st, responding to the shooting. That would have been, and even then, I had just came off of our tactical unit, and I was assigned with HSI Team 34 and worked that with HSI.
Okay.
So I was always appreciative of that. They kind of took me, because you know, at the time I was the only agent for our division. HSI said no problem, called headquarters, and we worked 24 hours with everybody else. That was a long night.
So when you say you worked it, like what did you do?
I was notified. It was after a Sunday, so I was at the house, but a great detective from Metro came over and let me know, hey, because our Metrocom radios get on the horn. All this was transpiring. So hopped in the ride. I respond to the strip, calling headquarters, and at the time they were wondering about one of the officers they couldn't account for. So it was even more kind of like, hey, make sure at least our people are okay. When I responded, I went to the scene first, where Metro, of course, was set up. And then I linked up with the rest of the HSI agents, and we went over to Mandalay Bay to assist in the bottom.
Okay.
I didn't go up top. So we were, there was at one point we were transferring people from one site safely to it, you know, just to make sure nothing was going to happen. From there, we left that main scene and then went to headquarters at Metro. And then now everybody's coming in, and, you know, throughout the morning, you're kind of figuring out who's done what and who's going to where and who's going to help out. After that, we stayed at headquarters and did the admin, I would say, side of it. Just getting everybody briefed.
Nice. I know, you know, working for the U.S. Attorney's Office at the time, I was at a friend's pool party that day.
Okay. It was a Sunday.
Yeah. And something told me, like, hey, just, you know, stop drinking, just chill out, you know. And sure enough, like, by the time I made it home, I was on the phone with the intel specialist, you know, at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and literally both of us got the text at the same time. And as we're on speakerphone, we're looking at the text, and we're, hey, are you going to FBI headquarters? And I said, yeah.
So is that where you end up?
Well, I ended up at the Metro headquarters.
Metro, okay.
And I spent 3 days.
I could have sworn we saw each other there.
I spent 3 days, no sleep.
And see, I thought one day was a big deal, and you did 3.
I did 3 days there.
Wow.
And seeing the whole process and all of the, we'll call them ghost calls of active shooters, you know, coming in, you know, just from people running to the other locations and saying there's an active shooter, you know, that in itself caused so much chaos, but they were able to
Sifting that pretty quick.
sift through it pretty quick, which I think, Metro did very well.
I do.
The whole command center, pulled together. It was definitely a tragic event, and I've attended every year since then. The memorial
Nice.
that they have down at the Grove, and if you're in the Las Vegas area and ever want to, see a nice memorial of the 1 October shooting, head downtown towards the Art District, and the Memorial Grove is down there. So what? Any other cases you could talk about that?
That's a good question. Nothing jumps out of my head. A lot of it was intel related. A lot of it was, following. The travel was nice, just being able to cover the islands. Most of the train ups would happen in DC. Of course, you got FLETC down south, and we have Bryn Mawr up north. And we did a lot of threat assessments, and we worked on the community outreach a little bit more because we were such a small division, and to let any of the employees know, hey, if you have any issues. But Vegas was one of those places, Metro was so on it that they handled business. So if something were to happen to a facility or a calling came in, most people are calling 911 initially. Metro is going to handle that. And then our uniformed guys will respond. And if it's a serious level, then I'd come out there. But this city, they got it handled. So I think the bigger cases in the offices, like for us in LA, Miami, New York, DC, those are the guys that are getting bigger cases.
How do you feel, going off of that? How do you feel that Vegas handles situations like that as opposed to other places in the country that you've worked for or worked with? And
we've had the nice part of being TDY all over the place, and we've got to work with a lot of different agencies. I put Vegas in the top 3.
Okay, what would be your other 2?
Man,
put you on the spot.
Are we talking local departments, or are we talking state or feds?
Either or. I mean, if you have a top 3 for the feds and then have a top 3 for local.
That's good. Let's see here. I would say Homeland Security, just because of so many agencies in the umbrella. And we worked a lot with Secret Service, and the OIG a few times. I was always impressed. The OIGs are always smaller, but they can be a little more technical. And on the state, I would have to go with Georgia. I'm a Georgia boy. So
where in Georgia?
Warner Robins.
Okay.
Yep. Good old war town. It's known for its base there in middle Georgia. So yeah, I'm a big fan. Grew up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in your investigative career, is there a case that you ever worked where you ever felt like you didn't know if you were going to make it home?
There was a few cases where we were going after individuals that had raped certain women and had the warrants to go with it. And I would say there was a few times on that, when you're going in to make that arrest, and they are saying, we ain't going, ain't no way I'm going back, that I think every officer, sooner or later, we're going to scrap, you're going to fight. But I always felt, like we were in the right, like we were doing the right thing. So when it came to life threatening, it's really weird. And we've both been overseas, we've done the combat zones, and we've done here on the street. It's all relative. I think, our mindset when we go out before every time, if we just say, I'm coming home no matter what. And if you're with me, we're coming home. And I think that's a brotherhood that we have that's very unique.
I would agree with that.
And I like that. So yeah, the fear's there. If anybody doesn't have any fear, I'm like, I don't, that fear will keep you on point. It keeps you very focused. So not to where you can't do your job, but I like it when you're on your heels. It's like, hey, let's let's get everything in place as we go through those doors and we go through those places.
Now, kind of switching back to the executive protection side of things.
Our favorite.
The most recent event with the United Healthcare CEO. What are your thoughts on that whole incident? and how could things have been prevented or mitigated?
That's a good question. And condolences, obviously, to the family. And I think, from what I've been told, he did not have an EP team. And I think and I say we, if we'd have been in that business, you and I have certainly done that. So, I think things would have ended differently. I think, and you will hear in our business, we have to get it right 1,000 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
They only got to get it right once. So when you see his actions, you see the way he did, that could have been anyone hopping out. But I would like to think that if he saw those proper security elements pull up and they were in place, maybe he just kept going. Maybe it'd been something else. But I think presence and perception is a 90%,
Oh, yeah.
Luck has a little bit to do with it sometimes when we've been able to avert things or make things happen.
I would say luck has a lot to do with a lot of things. In this line of work, it could just be like, as you said, the presence, them seeing, oh, he's got somebody else with him. She's got somebody else with him. Like, nope, I don't want to touch it this time.
And from what I was told, he cased the place. He had kind of made the rounds. He was familiar.
From what I've read, he actually was there up to 10 days prior.
Oh, okay.
Which, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, that's obviously an individual with an agenda. In my mind, he knew, like, he was receiving threats the week prior, from what I've read.
I wasn't aware of that.
And this is stuff that I've read open source, that his wife had done in an interview, that she said that he had received threats. And this was maybe a day or two after the assassination. And she had said that, hey, we were receiving death threats and multiple threats the week prior. Why do you think that, and of course this is just opinion, but
sure,
why do you think that he wouldn't alternate or alter his plans in that instance?
I think it's I want to be approachable concept. And I know there's always a give and a take. That was, when it comes to our world of protection, that was one of the reasons I never did Hollywood or did the stars, because that's you have to have that public, be close. And it's a give and a take. When it comes to government, executive, and corporates and families that we deal with, there is that line that we know that, they do appreciate that. Right. Could you ask the question again? I'm sorry. We started going off on the.
Well, and we'll just kind of shift it to why do you think that, as a company of United Healthcare's size, why would they not have a protective detail, or at least a security driver or security person, a PSO or a body person, on the CEO while they travel?
I think that's the question they're all asking each other now.
Yeah.
But sometimes, before it comes down to budgeting, and sometimes it comes down to being that necessary evil where when the people we protect, when you get to such a net value, insurance goes, you have to have a detail.
Right.
It's always interesting with the CEOs because it's more of the company wealth, and not that they're not wealthy themselves, but I think there's been a lot of give and a take where they ask them, is this something that you want or prefer? And if they don't, then as respectfully as they do, which we have, I say we, but I had to learn in the government world where it's very cut and dry.
Yeah.
It's a lot of gray area in the private world of protection. So it didn't surprise me that there was no detail there. It didn't surprise me that he waved it off if it was, an option. But it didn't surprise me how easy it was either. That was That was the worst part. You know, when you don't have anyone there
Yeah.
or any type of element, it shows how easy it can be to walk up and it's done.
And have you seen the video?
I've seen the clip of the approach, the firing where he approaches him and then walks off. I would say the only clip I've probably seen is maybe 5 to 7 seconds.
The one that I saw was, you see the CEO walk past the black SUV.
Mm.
He pops out behind it, shoots him, and then takes off. And then I've seen another one where you see him in the dark alley, grab the bike, and then head off on the bike.
Okay.
How do you feel like, and it's so random that I think it was Pennsylvania, a McDonald's worker recognizes the guy.
Yeah, that little bit of luck.
I mean,
what are the chances?
And
then I think it was a rookie cop that made the first approach. Or
I think
I saw a little bit in the news that he was getting hailed. You know, he's doing a good thing as a hero, and I think he was a rookie. So yeah, those two, just things like that.
Like, I feel like it's just meant to be at that point.
Yeah.
That, you know, he was meant to be found because.
And I think, did he drop his phone, or there's a few things that I know the backpack was dropped, or I think there was Monopoly money in it, but I didn't really.
Yeah, I'm
keep up with that part, but I think you bring up a very good point when things like that. And I know we've seen them in investigations, we've seen them in protection. Well, certain things will fall into place that we win some days, and that's what we shoot for.
Some days.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, and a lot of it is with our work, it always comes down to advance work.
Oh yeah.
Advance is the bread and butter of what we do. If you don't do great advance work, like, your mission can go to shit.
Oh yeah, there's no glue.
It's hell in a handbasket, right. as you know. So no matter who your advance agent is, they always have to be on point. They have to know the routes in and out. They have to know nearest hospitals, nearest
police
safe
stations,
havens.
fire stations, all those hard targets that we can kind of get to. Not hard, but secure that. Yeah, there's 100 of those little things that are very fine details, but it's what makes us what we do. I always say, there's not ninjas jumping around every corner of a hallway necessarily, but to get them from A to B, make sure they're not embarrassed and make sure everything's safe. That's the part that, nobody talks about. It's like on cops. You see them go from run to run to run to run. It's like, they do paperwork. There are downtimes, and there's a lot of stuff we do behind the scenes that there's some more glamorous than others, like in any job. We've got our halls and walls, and then you've got the inner circle and everything in between. It's a lot, but the advance is a chunk.
So moving on to tequila.
Yes.
We are drinking Fuentaseca's Cosecha 2018. Yeah, 2018.
Yeah. It's nice.
It is, in my opinion, it's one of my, I would say, top 5
it's smooth.
tequilas. I find it very easy to drink, unfortunately, for the price. Like, I've been through a few bottles before, and it's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where's my manners?
You're good. So what are your thoughts on?
You have introduced me to some very fine, high-end tequila as a portion of the Irish in me. I would drink anything, but now you're introducing me to all these incredible tastes and not the low forms that I've been swilling around. So I think it tastes great. It's smooth. It's warming. It's above my pay level.
So
I like it.
in tequila should not be smooth. It should be complex. It should be robust.
Oh, you're teaching me now.
Meanwhile, like, everyone's perception of smooth is different. Is it drinkable? And you're like this and any other tequila that I have
a ton.
I wouldn't say a ton.
Does everybody know this isn't all of it?
No.
There's a huge section.
They may or may not. We won't get into that.
He is into tequila.
But you know, smooth is relative. I feel
You like a bite with yours, like a
I do like a bite. I do like the peppery finish.
okay. It's definitely got that.
I do also like the lactic in some of the tequilas. Like you'll have this lactic finish. It just depends. But so far, all the tequilas that I've had on the podcast have been phenomenal. They could be daily drinkers, and that's what's crazy about this one is you don't want it. Yeah, you could daily drink it, but for the price point, you don't want to daily drink it.
I get that. Is this just the weekend type of you pull it out for special occasions?
This was the first solo podcast.
Hey,
I pulled it out.
Lovely. Glad I could be a part of it, brother.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And so,
let me ask you this: as a tequila connoisseur, does it sit and you let it warm in your hand? Is that a tequila thing where it, as you know?
It depends on the glassware. Yes, so with stemwood, you'll see a lot of tequila tastings with like similar to a champagne flute with a stem,
Okay.
or even
I've never even seen that.
Even like a not necessarily a goblet type glass. You'll see those sometimes just with even a small stem, and it's just so one, you don't have the heat transfer, or you also one can't smell anything that's on your hand when you go to nose the tequila. So if you nose it in each side,
I don't have a septum either. Nothing in the middle, so it's all
fair enough.
A lot more desert stuff.
Fair enough. And then like you can start to take different notes on like the cooked agave. You can get a black pepper in there. You can get the citrus in there.
And do they do? I'm assuming tastings here in Vegas.
Yeah,
these kind of things. Well, it's incredible. And I'm getting schooled. Thank you very much. In Georgia and South Georgia, we didn't get classes on this. So, and in the military, you just drink. So,
so like everybody has their own tequila journey. Describe your tequila journey. Like, where has your palate started?
Right here. My journey started on the first podcast, and I'm damn proud of it. So, before that, it would be go into a store. I know it by the bottles and the color. I would just pick out a gold because it's normal to me.
Okay.
And I had no really experience, other than that Jose Cuervo kind of thing, which so this is a very unique experience for me because this is your world. And now I'm getting to kind of stick my toe in and experience and know, hey, this is what you look for, other than just dumping it with some ice or 7-Up. So it is. It's very. I like that. I can still learn stuff, outside of our world.
So and it's interesting that you mentioned like Jose Cuervo. So I went to the distillery, 2 trips ago.
Okay.
Walked in.
We're talking Mexico.
Yeah.
Okay.
Walked in, ended up trying the Family Reserve.
What color was it? Was it a gold? Was it silver? Was it?
It was in a barrel. So you pull it out.
Okay. From the barrel.
Yeah.
Did it taste different being in the barrel?
So I will tell you that it was an instant headache for me. Like from the first sip to the very last sip.
Did you play it off?
No. Like it was just like, okay. Like I just couldn't handle it. And
your palate's too refined. That's all.
I would like to say that it's refined.
I would say so.
But
Well, were they nice to you? Was it a good
Oh,
overall tour?
we didn't do the tour. We just walked in
Oh.
to the distillery because they have a shop and they have a place that you can sit down,
Okay.
order tequila and drink.
All right.
So yeah, we didn't do the tour, but walked into the public area of the distillery and sampled that.
Off the headache.
Yeah, and it was an instant headache for me, and I was just like, I can't do Jose Cuervo.
So you haven't had it since?
Oh no. I'm like, before that, like I couldn't remember the last time I had Jose Cuervo.
Well, and now you get great tequila like this. And you have all this shipped, or when you go down, do you just bring hulls back?
So a lot of this stuff you can purchase locally. There's some stuff that is obviously not so local.
I got to see all the special stuff upstairs. Yeah, the vault. Yeah, there's a lot of special stuff.
I have quite a few bottles that I've only brought back from Mexico.
Okay. And that's no issue coming back with a certain amount. I guess you can haul it in the belly or up.
Well, according to your former agency,
here we go.
There, if you're driving, there's an allowable amount of liters
coming across the border.
Across the border.
I know.
If you're flying, it's a little bit different. There's not really a limit, but there would be a limit if you get pulled aside.
Okay. All right. From big boy rules.
From what I've read and what I understand as far as other people.
This is where we'd say, that's what my cousin told me.
Right.
Well, that's quite the collection. Now, are there still bottles that you want that are very rare, that you're like, I've got this stack of 10 that I've just got to make my way through and to complete a collection, or is it just always ongoing?
It's always ongoing. I mean, there's bottles that I don't have that if I found in the wild, I would be like, okay. Depending on the price,
Would you buy the bottle without the tequila in it? Or would you want to make sure it was always I don't know how that works. I didn't know if there's things that you collect, like the tequila's not there anymore, but you want
and so like everything that you saw out there, other than like a few bottles that I have open, the majority of them are unopened.
Okay.
And a lot of those are actually signed bottles that I have out there.
Now, when it comes to signing, is it proper to sign the back, the front, the side? I always wonder, or does everybody have their own special place that they say, this is where we sign on a bottle? Because I know if you're grabbing them, handling them, sometimes they can get smeared. So I always wondered, is there a method behind the madness with your tequila signatures?
No. So it's just wherever the owner or the master distiller wants to sign them.
Good to be the king.
Yeah. A lot of them do it in between the label.
Okay.
Some do it on the label. Like I have this Atanasio Origins out there that's signed by Renee, who's the master distiller and owner of Atanasio.
Okay.
And he signed it on the front.
Very nice. And on the tequilas, if they get low, is it historically correct to fill it with the same spirit so you keep the original tequila, or is it a thing with these specialty bottles to keep the bottle?
So with the specialty bottles, it depends. But if you end up drinking one of the specialty bottles, like that's the only one that
was it
of that, yeah,
right.
If you refill it with,
Jose Cuervo, just kidding.
Yeah, and you give it to your neighbor that you don't like.
Right. There's always that one neighbor. Yeah. You just keep that off to the side. Yeah.
Here, try this. Yeah,
you're gonna love it. It'll be the best one he probably ever had.
Right.
You never know the difference. Yeah.
He probably wouldn't, or she, depending on your neighbor.
There you go. I like that save. That's pretty good.
Um, what is your go-to tequila?
Whatever you put in front of me.
Before me.
I would have to say, it's not Jose Cuervo. There's a one. It starts with a T, and it's nothing out of the.
Terramona.
That sounds. It's
The Rocks tequila.
I believe so. If I saw a picture, I could verify it, but I don't think. I don't have that specialty. I don't have that connoisseur side of me for tequila. So this to me is more than I've ever been explained when it comes to the tequila itself, and it's fascinating. So I'm embarrassed to say I don't really probably have a go-to for tequila. I'll just walk in, the bottle catches my eye. If it's something somebody's mentioned, I'll grab it. Word of mouth goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
But for a personal side, I don't think I would have one. I just go out. You've introduced me to this. I know that next time if I saw that, I'd be like, yeah.
Well, the easiest way to identify this one is you see this wooden box.
Okay. And that means, they're proud. That ain't no Jose price.
No.
But to me, I pay for quality and convenience. So I certainly don't, have a problem. I would assume it's a few $100s.
Roughly $139 total wine you can get it.
Not bad at all. The Macallan's 12 is usually like $100 bottle. So that's for the way it tastes and the presentation, I think it's a great price.
Yeah.
I would imagine it would have been 2 or 3 times that.
But for a daily sipper,
very nice.
You're going to go through.
Yeah,
you're going to go through a lot.
The only downside is the sipping,
right?
Because there's so much of it. But yes, it's very nice. And I will say from that Jose Cuervo level, there's definitely a difference, and it's very nice.
So now, and you say there's a difference. Like, what kind of difference do you notice between drinking that type of tequila and what we're drinking tonight?
The notes on the taste, the Jose Cuervo tries to have, to me, just a little bit more spice and to kind of hide the taste maybe. But with this one, it's the notes afterwards. So it was clean. I caught the notes afterwards. I like the burn, that bite. And this would be something that I would completely drink neat like this. I know with the others, I've got to mix it with something. It's either going to be, a juice or a soda or something. With these, I like the purity of it because, you can enjoy it just for what it is. Mm-hmm. I haven't been introduced to most of the tequilas in that world. So most of mine are just your go-to, like a quick shot with lime and salt, or, or you're pouring in mixers with it. So this is the next level where you're enjoying it. You're not just chugging it.
Right. And to each is their own in how they take their tequila. But for me, like, I love just neat, no salt, no lime.
Your favorite's neat.
Yep.
Okay.
If it's Makes a good sense. Tequila, yes.
You don't need all the other stuff.
On a recent trip to Mexico, I was introduced to, not introduced, but I had 2 different tequilas that were not additive free, but.
And you're big on that, right? No,
I enjoy additive free.
And to me, that's a unique thing for tequila, correct?
It is.
Okay.
It is. So it's agave, yeast, and water. And that's primarily it.
Okay.
But on this trip, it's one of those things where, if you're working with a client and the client says, you're going to eat, you can refuse.
Yeah.
But if the client says you're going to eat again, you're eating.
Yeah. We spoke about that.
So it's always, respectfully, yes, you can decline.
Sure.
But on this trip, like, it was one of those things where I knew if I didn't go and say, okay, I'll drink with you, I think it was like, all right. So they offered me a tequila.
Were they expecting your knowledge that you have, or were you quiet about that?
No. They were, oh, you want a tequila? Okay. So when they pour me the tequila, they pour me a tequila like this.
Okay.
And I look at it and I was just thinking in my head, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I know this is crappy tequila.
You knew it.
I knew it based off the brand. I was like,
that's what I was going to ask. Did they happen to, you could see what they were
yeah,
pouring?
yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I was like, okay. It's like, I want to be polite and everything. So
Sure.
I drank it and I started getting a headache after, the first, few sips. And I was just like, okay. Drank it. We went and did a couple other things, came back, and they were like, hey, want some more tequila? And I was like, well, if I say no, like, I don't want to be disrespectful.
Sure.
Especially first time, meeting them. So I take it again, and I'm like, yep, still the same. But this time, like, the pour was literally the same, if not just a little bit more. And I was just like, oh.
Were they drinking the same?
No, they weren't drinking.
Oh.
So it's one of those things you're like, oh man, like. But it was a great time. I enjoyed talking with them, and the whole experience. Like, even if you don't like tequila with additives, like, there's some times where you're just like, okay, I gotta have this, but sure. I choose not to, or don't want to. So,
how many trips have you made to distilleries?
So this last trip was my 4th trip.
All different
in the last
tequila
year.
Distilleries. All of them different, or do you find yourself returning to the same ones every once in a while?
So I've returned to 2 of them on 3 trips.
Okay. Do you have a favorite?
For tours or just for
That's
tequila?
A good question. Tequila.
For tequila, I wouldn't say that I have a favorite.
Okay.
For tours, the top 2, and it's so tough to even say which one is number 1 and which one is number 2, but the top 2 would be Atanasio,
okay,
and Fortaleza.
And those are the bottles you showed me out there.
Yes.
Okay.
I have an Atanasio here,
okay,
and then up there are the Fortaleza.
Okay.
And as you can see, the story that I was telling you about Fortaleza, the middle bottle is the etched.
That's etched on. I like that. Yeah. Very sharp.
Yes.
Yeah.
But those would be my top 2, and that's only because Fortaleza has an amazing tour. They have this cave that you go into and you sample the tequilas. Atanasio, I got to sit down with my fiance, and it was just her and I with the master distiller and Agave Gina from El Tequileno.
Okay.
And we got to sit down and basically make our own tequila, which are these 2 small bottles here.
Made by you.
Yeah. So we made those 2 bottles, and they're at 2 different percentages. One is at a 55%, and the other one's at a 48%. And both are amazing.
Nicely done. And it's personal.
Yeah. And those are our signatures that are on those bottles.
I like that.
But in that process, like, you sit down with the master distiller, you go through, they put the initial first distillation in a small still.
Okay.
He heats up the still, and he goes through the process of, here, feel it.
Okay.
And as it starts, and then you start seeing it come out, and you start to collect the heads, which is the first part, and it's similar to moonshine.
Okay.
And I actually have a cousin that has a moonshine distillery in Florida.
Okay.
It's called Mall's Mountain Moonshine. But so it's similar to the distillation of tequila in that aspect. but you take the heads off, which is going to be the harsh, more.
Is that even drinkable, or can you?
You can, but it's got more of the methanol alcohol to it. So
harshness.
Yeah,
all right.
It's more harsh. And then you have what's called the hearts, which is basically the body.
Okay.
And then you have the tails, which is basically everything that comes off after the hearts, and it's a lot lighter. Like you don't have as much alcohol in it.
Okay.
So you collect both. You collect all three. And if you want your tequila to be a higher proof, then you'll add heads. If you want it to be lower proof, then you'll add the tails.
Okay, makes sense.
And so we added a little bit of heads into it, and we came up with a great product that we liked. I want to open it, but at the same time, I don't want to open it.
Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, so that was my experience with Atanasio, and that's why they're in my top 2 as far as because it was just a very intimate tour. Like it was scheduled for 5 hours. We did a 6-hour tour.
How big? And it was just you two, or did people flow?
Well, no, it was just the 2 of us, and we get there. They give us breakfast. They start the distillation process. We go through everything. We do a tasting while we're doing it.
Okay.
We have lunch while we're there, and it's all they bring chefs in. They do all.
Now, are you feeling it at any certain point, like with the tastings? Like
no.
Before, it was smooth.
Yeah, just smooth.
Nice.
And then after that, then you start to mix and make your own variation of your own batch of their tequila. And by the end of the time, like, and in the middle, like you go out to the field, you see how you harvest the
start
agaves.
to finish.
Yep.
Wow.
And it just makes you appreciate everything that you're drinking more when you go out there and you see the hard labor that
everything that goes
the humidors do, and everything from the distillation process, the fermentation process. Coming from a homebrew brewer's background, like I used to homebrew my own beer.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually won second place in the state of Nevada for a Pilsner that I made.
What'd you call it?
It was a honey Pilsner.
You didn't name it after yourself, like
no.
No,
it was
like Matt's Brew or something.
It wasn't anything cool. It was just
second place.
Yeah,
this guy's humble. Please,
that's runner up. If you ain't first, you're last.
Well, that's what Ricky Bobby's doing. Is he the one that said that? Or
he is.
His buddy?
He is. No, it was.
But dude, second place. Come on now, and that's beer. That's not even your go-to.
Yeah.
I'm
well,
impressed.
I had to stop drinking beer at one point because of an allergy. So I switched over to tequila at that point.
Smart. Sounds very Irish.
And then I made my way to additive-free tequila, and it's just been.
And the additive-free was a point for you because of why?
I noticed the difference between tequilas with additives. Like for me, like I always get a headache, whether it's instantly or after.
Okay.
And it could just be like I just have one glass. But with additive free, like I don't ever get the headaches. I don't ever nothing.
I like that. And does it say on the bottles with or without additives, or how does that work?
So here's the interesting thing.
Okay.
Before. There are some tequilas, like I'm not sure if this Atanasio one has one on there, but there are some that actually had little stickers, or even on the label would say additive free. Or
do you find that they sell better additive free?
It's more of a new movement.
Okay.
So yes, it's starting to
catch,
or it's caught on now. And the thing about it is, now that it's caught on, the big conglomerates of tequila and the CRT have taken notice, because the decline in sales.
Okay.
And they are now putting it towards the additive-free brands. So the CRT recently came out and said, if you're advertising as additive-free or you show any signs that you're additive-free, whether on the label or stickers or anything like that, then they're going to come at you.
Do you find that they, like with the organic thing, do you find that they will naturally charge more being additive free, just like with vegetables? If they're, organic, we'll charge more. Does the industry differentiate?
No. You start to get more price gouging with bottles that are like unicorns, like so Fortaleza.
Okay.
The owner and master distiller of Fortaleza doesn't want price gouging on the bottles.
Okay.
But it happens.
Sure.
So like you'll see bottles of Fortaleza that should be like, for the Blanco, maybe $40, $50, maybe even less, just depending on the area.
Okay.
For like 80, 90, $100. Like it all comes down to one, the distributors and the local liquor stores of where they're being sold and how the price gouging is going. But a lot of the tequila brands don't like the price gouging.
Okay. I learn something every day in this world.
Listen, I'm glad I could teach you something.
I am. I'm very impressed, dude. Yeah. There's a lot I'm learning about tequila.
Well, I do appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Hopefully everybody else has enjoyed, and, love to have you back on at some point.
Sure.
Talk about tequila, talk about life.
Sure. Yeah. We can cover all kinds of stuff from our world.
Right. All right, everybody. Have a good night.